celebration of 400 subscribers, I hosted an event. Said event gave everybody the option to vote for what they wanted me to build. The top 4 most wanted builds would be what I built. Unfortunately, that wasn't followed too well. I ended up building many other builds before the ones I've actually needed to. And I may have said in the video that I was going to be advancing each build's level by a noticeable amount. Now I may or may not have stuck to that until now. Shin Godzilla. I will be rebuilding a bigger and better Shin Godzilla one day, but with the deadline of GXK coming out, I wanted to make sure I was ready to build those characters. They are smaller now, but easier to build. Let's get into the review. Shin Godzilla Stage 2. Also the only cute version of Shin Godzilla. So let's talk about the build first. One of the first things you may notice on the build are several gaps it has. That was a lot of articulation it tried to be given, but certainly no excuse. It is full of gaps, and it definitely decreases the quality of the build. Let's talk about some things bad before we go to the good stuff. The gills do not really come off as gills, they just kind of look like blood dripping from the neck. The head does not look anything like the original design for Shin's second head. The dorsal fins, they're good, but they're a little small, and the feet just look kind of silly. Things I do like are the very large amount of articulation, letting it pose in almost any position you would need it to be posed in. It stands very well, the tooth pieces being used for the arms give the perfect detail, and the size is very well proper, I guess you could say. Articulation consists of a clip for the head, no articulation for the mouth, a ball joint for the neck, a hinge for the torso / like waist, and then 2 ball joints for the thighs, and then 2 clips to connect to the thighs or the legs, and then 2 clips for each foot. And then of course the tail goes a ball joint, hinge, 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 hinge. So nice articulation. The build stands up at an average height of about 5 bricks tall. And overall, I really like the build. I think it's pretty good representation of the source material. I'm gonna give it 2 sleeping, maybe 1.5 sleeping Gojis. On to the next form. Shin Godzilla Stage 3. My favorite stage. So going straight to the build, the color palette here is not nearly as accurate as Shin Stage 2, though I think Shin Stage 2 should have been dark tan. Light tan is much more effective than this brown color. I chose to do brown because it would have taken much longer to find parts in dark red, and last time I did light red, which looked very toyish. I also think a mix of brown and dark red really helps contrast and give that more flesh and torn appearance. And I think it helps transition it from tan brown to black instead of tan red to black. Now let's talk about some details on the build. This time I think the dorsal fins are more appropriately scaled with the body, though they still appear a little short. I think this time they're a proper size. I'm also quite a big fan of the way the tail looks, poses, and is. I think the feet don't look as bad on this one, so they still kind of look like shoes. I think the head is just as accurate as last one's head to the source material. It's good enough, though I don't think it's perfect and doesn't look exactly like Shin Stage 3. And the articulation, there is a hinge at the head and a ball joint at the neck, exact same as the previous one. A hinge at the waist, the exact same as the previous one. 2 ball joints for the thighs, 2 clips to connect to the thighs, and then 2 clips for each toe, exact same as the last one. And now the tail is actually different. We have a ball joint, a ball joint, a ball joint, a ball joint, a clip, a ball joint, a ball joint, a ball joint. So you know how it goes. Our articulation, I think it's quite solid. Unlike last one, I do not think the gaps ruin the design or the articulation. I think it still looks good and can move quite a lot. Now for the size, it stands at around 12 bricks tall on average, and if you bend it over just like the last one, it will be the exact same height, around 10 bricks tall. Overall, I rated exactly 3 sleeping Gojis. On to the next and final, Shin Godzilla Stage 4. As much as I love Stage 4, I think Stage 3 just has something about it that brings it to a better spot. Design-wise, I think Stage 4 might be one of the coolest Godzilla designs, but here on this build, I didn't do a very accurate job representing that epicness that Shin had in the film. That isn't to say, though, I still think Shin Godzilla looks great towards the source material, besides for a slightly oversized and not perfect-looking head design. Overall, you may notice the color scheme is black with red. I did not make a purple or pinkish second version, but all it requires is to replace all red with pink, and I felt it doesn't look as cool with the pinks. Not saying I don't like pink, I think Evolved Godzilla did an amazing, and Shin Godzilla looks terrifying. Just saying that the pink with the red, it's a mess. And in Lego form, it's even worse. The gaps here, once again, I don't think really ruin the design. I think it looks just fine. There are places like in the mouth where it does end up looking more questionable. And in the tail, it's a little often, but I think it just adds to some details on the tail. The feet, I think, are one of the worst things. My original attempt did not work due to a lack of parts, so I had to resort to this more Titanus-like foot, and I think it's fine and it works for the foot. It definitely doesn't bring that terrifyingly disgusting, disturbing foot that Shin has. For the tail, I really like. I just like how long it is, the design, the thin layer, how it transitions, as well as the end where the skin does not seem to be on the tail. I think looks pretty good. I'll accept it. And the worst part of this build would definitely be the head. Unfortunately, I cannot figure anything out. Shin Godzilla's head is not something you can really build at a small scale like this. I've seen other people try. It requires a larger scale in order to do, but I think this head, it works, and the body definitely helps the head look normal. And then finally, the legs. They just, thighs particularly, don't scream Shin Godzilla legs. I don't know why. I kind of just copied off some of the actual source material, a little bit that I used, and I mean, this is basically the leg, so I'll let it slide, but they also look a little off to me, and I think I could definitely have done better with more time and a larger scale, but anyways, I think it's great. Let's move on to the articulation. So for the articulation, the head just has a hinge, which is to be expected, though it can't look left or right without moving the torso, which is fine with me. The jaw this time has a hinge, as well as two clips that aren't meant to be articulated, but there are two studs which can help the jaw unhinge. I honestly don't know what the term is anymore. I forgot. Yeah, it can do that. A hinge for the neck instead of a ball joint, unfortunately. This time the hands actually have a bit of articulation, which I did not mention in the second form. The hands do have a slight bit of articulation as well. It is just a clip letting it move up and down and swing a little back and forth. And then the waist has a ball joint, one of the best joints on the Shin, if you ask me. The legs are both connected with ball joints, and then the knee connects with a clip, and the foot is a ball joint this time, and the entire tail is a ball joint until the last three clips. And that is the articulation for Shin Godzilla. I think it is great, gets in every single pose, and does not limit the design's quality. Overall, I give stage 4 sleeping Gojis. The rating has nothing to do with the stage, it's just conveniently each one just gets better in quality. Probably because each one I put a little more time into, but who knows? Stage 4's height goes up to about 15 bricks tall, and his tail goes up to 20. But normally it would be curved or at a bend, so it would only go up to around the head as well. That's all 3 Shin forms. I did not build the first, even though that's what y'all voted for, was all 4 forms, because I feel like the first is kind of just the tail in the movie, and the design itself is really just something funny. But all 3 forms here look great together. I hope to just throw out a how to build video out there, maybe a how to build short or 2. It'll be lower quality, but it hopefully will still be out there. That is Sikart's message to you.